everybody. I am back. It shit happens. Oh my God, who else feels like the weekend just went by? Because that's how it feels like it's already a Monday. But it started well, you know? It started with my clubhouse room, which was energizing. And as much as I was very sleepy because I didn't go to bed until 3 a.m. Yes, and I had to be up to my clubhouse room at 7 a.m. Talk about showing up, after listening to Jay-Z's Grammy speech, I was like, okay, I stayed up late. I still gotta show up because that's life, right? Gotta show up. So now here we are. And Shit Happens. If you're new, welcome to Shit Happens, where I bring on guests with one specific item to discuss, which kind of rounds up their personality or their background or their brand or something, right? So today I have the beautiful, incredible fire starter who I actually got to spend some time with her 2 weeks ago. So that was good because anytime I'm around her presence, it just feels amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on Miss Sha Sparks so that she
Mm.
can spark the stage. Hey, Sha, welcome to Shit Happens.
Hey Paula, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here and blessed to know you and at least get to hang out with you and feel your amazing energy onto me once a year.
I know, right? Right back. Like every time I think about podcasts, I'm like, I can't wait to get all those energies again around me. Like I get overwhelmed after a few days. Like I'm ready for my bed and my quiet, but it's also so nice to wake up from morning to evening, walking around and just seeing energizing, smiling faces, content creators, and you just talk about things you're passionate about and love and have these deep conversations. It's just a moment.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It for me, it really fills me up, fills my cup back up. So it helps me. Not that I get stuck because sometimes we do. We get tired, we get overwhelmed. We're
Mhm.
like, ugh, do I want to continue doing this? We get imposter syndrome. Like, who's listening to me anyway?
Mm.
And then getting around other, like you said, content creators, it's like, oh, this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
And 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 you're right. It does fill your cup because just as you said, imposter syndrome. You don't know if people are actually listening to me. Are people noticing me? Do people know the work I'm putting? Are people viewing? The algorithm as well. Are people seeing what I'm working on? And then you get there and people actually seek and they're like, oh my god, I was watching this. You're amazing. Oh my god, look how far. And that in itself is like, yes, I gotta keep going. Yes, I gotta
Yeah.
keep going. Yes, people are watching, people are seeing, people are noticing, and you also get the reassurance you need, and also you get to kind of see your journey through other people's eyes. Because when we're walking that journey, we forget to see how far we have come because we are concentrated on how far we need to still keep going. So when
Right.
you're around people who actually like, but when you were here last year, you were here and now look where you are, and you're like, oh damn, yeah.
Right. Right.
I love that. And one of the best moments, one of my highlights at Purpose this year was when I saw you and I came and hugged you. You're sitting on the sofa over there, and you're like, "Oh my God, Paula, you need to go and meet Michael right there. Go find him because I was just talking about you." So things like that. You're like, "Oh my God, you were just talking about me to somebody else." And literally, I was like, "I know I'm supposed to be volunteering, but if I don't go now, I'll forget." So I went
Right.
up, I was like, "Hi, Michael. I'm in a rush, but we like talked a bit, and I was like, please stick me after. We need to continue talking, but at least I was introducing, and now we have plans. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's one of my favorite things to do is to connect with other people and connect, not me connect with other people, connect people to each other. And as soon as I was talking with him and hearing, what he has plans to do, and I was like, "Oh my God, Paula is the person you need to talk to. You guys will just click." So, yeah, I'm
I
glad. I'm
love,
glad it worked.
yeah, I love that because I'm also that same person, like connecting people, like, uh, and I think that's why I love podcasts so much because everybody is just always connecting people with people. Like, there's not this, oh no, I don't want to introduce you to that. As soon as they hear something, they're like, oh my God. you need to meet this. You need to have
Yeah.
this. You need to, and people are so open to it. So I love that. So
Yeah.
Sha, you're an incredible human being, right? And there's
Mm.
something I really, when shit happens, right? Compared to talk shit with P, I normally like prepare the interview questions and walk through the conversation. But shit happens because shit happens, and I realized that I do it last minute. For some reason, I was actually 2 hours before I got in here. That's when I knew what I was gonna speak with you today. So
Okay.
as I was reading your bio, even though I'd already read it, but so when I'm creating content or like posting, I don't really read to read. I just create. So
Hmm.
when I'm preparing, I was reading and I was like, you know what? Something stood up out to me, and I was like, this is what we're going to talk about:
Okay.
fearless communication, because a lot of
Mm.
people have a hard time communicating. I was one of those people, and then I started communicating, and now like I can't stand around people who can't communicate, and I've become an over communicator. Like even if I'm like I'm just going to the restroom, and then I'm gonna go do this, and they're like that's too much information. I'm like I don't care. I just rather you know than not know.
Hmm.
I've become that person, but a lot of us do have issues, problems with communication, or we have partners or friends or parents, especially as African parents. Oh my God, communication is an issue. Yeah. So and you are all about fearless communication. So let's talk about that. Why was it important for you to have that? And yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah. We'll talk about talk about shit happens. I was in an abusive relationship for 12 years. And I didn't realize until I got out of it how much I was withholding my voice, my own voice. How much my inner voice was so negative. And I started on what I call my healing journey. As soon as I got out of that relationship, I was into counseling right away. And I read 2 books that changed my life. One is Boundaries, and the other one is Women Who Love Too Much, which should be called People Who Love Too Hard, only because it applies to men too. Um, and I really saw how fear had held me back for most of my life because I was used to walking on eggshells around people, that we don't disrupt the house,
Mm.
from my childhood, or my dad would blow up with anger. And I didn't realize I was doing that again in this abusive relationship. Like, just keep the calm, keep the peace. So I didn't really say a lot about what was going on with me. I didn't really share feelings. I didn't share thoughts. And I did not communicate effectively. I was sarcastic, and I learned that sarcasm is anger in a clown suit, which is so like, what? It is? Like, how do you know? Well, there is fun sarcasm, right? But then there's this sarcasm that you're like really snarky and you're like, it's passive aggressive and
Defensive.
really soft, but you don't want to admit it or really say what's going on. And so I had to learn at one point to become vulnerable. And at the time, I couldn't even pronounce the word. I was like, "Blah, blah, blah," like I couldn't say it because it was so scary to me. And I really had to practice. And I'm a very spiritual person. And so as I'm going through this journey, um, I was really praying, like, okay, how do I even start this, God? Like, what do I do? And it's literally be vulnerable. You have to say what you mean what you say, and don't say it meanly. And that is like how the fearless communication really came about, was being able to have a conversation with my dad. And he was saying something to me, and I said, hold on, Dad. And I'm using just this voice. It wasn't a shame or blame voice or critical or judgmental or anything. It was like, hold on, Dad. What I'm hearing you is that you're wanting me to do something, but are you asking me to do it, or are you trying to manipulate me into doing it? And he's like, well, what? Like, he couldn't even say
Like what
manipulation.
is
Like,
manipulation?
and I'm like, well, of course you can't pronounce it. And so he's like, I don't know. I didn't know I was doing anything like that. Um, I don't know what that really is. And I said, well, it sounds like you're asking me to do something, but what you're really doing, instead of asking me in a question, you're telling me that this is what you want me to do. And then there's this underlying agenda that I know you're going to withhold love if I don't do it. And he was like, no, that's not my intention. And I said, well, how can you learn to ask me a question, ask me to do things rather than put it in a statement? And so I just had to learn to repeat that kind of conversation and say, okay, Dad, are you manipulating me, or are you asking me to do something? And then I got to the point where I would just say, do you want me to do this? And are you okay if I say no? And once I was able to use that, though, that language with him, he was like, of course I'm okay with you saying no. I'm okay. That's no big deal. But as a child, if I said no, it was like, you know, World War III going on in my house. So it's interesting that when I learned about me, I started to shift my own relationship with my dad. And then at the time I was a hairstylist, and I would share with my hair clients like what I'm going on. I'm like, oh, I'm learning that I am not willing to be vulnerable, and I am emotionally unavailable. I can't really speak about what's going on with me. I'm sarcastic. And they're like, oh my gosh, me too. And so they're like, so what are you doing? And I said, I'm learning to be vulnerable. Say what I mean what I say, and not say it meanly. And they're like, oh, wow. So 4 to 6 weeks would go by, and they would come back into their normal appointment. And they're like, because of what you said to do about being vulnerable, I have noticed that my relationship shifted with my boss, my kids, my spouse, my team, and my parents. And that just made a huge difference in my life. And I knew that I was onto something, that we really have to focus on what it is that we're saying. Not only what are we saying to ourselves, and then how does that overflow onto other people?
I like that. That's quite your journey is kind of similar to mine because at that time I used to think abusive relationship is only like physical abuse, right? You
Right.
forget that there is verbal abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's but
And
again,
financial. People don't
yes,
think of financial
financial
abuse,
abuse
but there is.
exactly.
Yeah.
So and I most of my relationship I was on, like I can voice, like I can, my voice is loud. I can voice shit, but that does not mean that I am a good communicator or I can communicate. I can shout what I want or what I need,
Exactly.
like
Yep,
but
guilty.
communicating is a whole other different thing. And I remember I was dating this guy, and it it started to literally I started realizing this is emotional abuse
Mm.
because um anytime I would voice my voice and tell him what's wrong or whatever, he'll start kind of switching it up like, oh, but you did something 2 weeks ago and I didn't say anything. Or like and then it will become into a whole fight. He'll turn it into me. I'm like, well, if I did it 2 weeks and you didn't like it, why mention it now when I bring something up? How was I supposed to know I did something wrong? But that became the pattern to the extent where it was, when it's good, it's very good. So you're scared to disrupt the peace because if you now start saying something, it's gonna go into a fight. And whenever we used to fight, he would just disappear for a week. Like
Mm.
unless I call or text, he'll just be gone. And then so in my mentality, I'm like, oh my God, if I now say something, it's gonna be that, and I'm gonna have to go through that, and I don't want to. So now it started shutting me up, which started damaging me, and I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't. This is not healthy. So when I told him this is abuse, it was like, no. I was like, okay, clearly you need some growing to do, and I need to learn what I want.
Yeah.
Then after that guy, I started dating white boys. I'd never dated white boys. So that was my journey to white boys.
Ah, and how's that working out?
So that's how I learned to communicate. Because now the first guy I dated, like this guy, out of the blue, like I didn't even ask. I'm in my zone. I don't even care what's going on, and I'm getting a message of location being shared because it's going to, on a like 2-3 hour drive.
Uh-huh.
So that means it's gonna be 6 back and forth. And I'm like, why are you sharing? He's like, I just wanted you to know where I'm gonna be, just in case.
Wow.
He would tell me when he gets home, like things, and I wasn't even asking or anything. And I was like, wait, so this is possible. So this is how communication looks like. I kind of like this, like, you know. So I
Mm-hmm.
started practicing, and I was like, yeah, now I'm not going back. Like, I'd rather you over communicate than don't communicate, because it feels like there's nothing bad about digging information from somebody. Like, damn, like I don't want to be feeling like I'm interviewing you. Like, just tell me, you know, just communicate. And it solves a lot of problems and issues. But also, it's sad that it took a white boy to show me that.
I love it.
But
I will
that's what.
say, I will put the caveat in here that it comes in all colors of non-communication. All flavors. Because I've had my own experience in all flavors. So
Oh, it does. And then I ended up my last text was also a white guy. He sucks at communication. Like he's the like literally, and I'm like, so
yeah.
it does, and then after, but I think because I did not know what communication looked like, so I
Mhm.
did not see it. So after that, I did, because I started communicating with also my friends, and it was happening. Everybody around me, I started communicating. I was like, oh, maybe because I didn't notice it, like I didn't know what communication looked like or how to communicate. That's why I didn't see it, or I didn't see it around, because some people were doing it. It's just that I wasn't aware about what communication was.
Right, right. It happens. Unless you are understanding there's a lack, then you have no idea because we only know what we know, right? So most of the time we don't even know what we don't know. And that's really what I started to focus on in this healing journey is what is it that I don't know that I need to know in order to move forward? And communication was one of those many things that I needed to know. So it's fascinating when you dive into it and what that looks like. But again, it all goes from what are we saying to ourselves and how that
Hmm.
overflows onto other people.
That's so true. And I think also taking the work into ourselves. I think most of the time we're so committed on, oh, that person needs to to do some work. That person isn't, like, to point fingers to other people
Yes.
instead of actually looking into ourselves and being like, yo, I also am lacking this. I need to go. And it sucks because, again, it took a breakup, uh, my breakup in 2020, where I really decided, I was like, okay, I've gone from relationship to relationship. I haven't given myself time to actually know myself and
Mm,
realize what I really want. Who am I? What?
mm.
So I went into a journey of getting to know myself, working on myself, and this.
Yay.
And I think when most people don't want to take those journeys to get to know themselves because they're fearful of the things maybe that they were portraying on others is what's actually on
Mm.
them.
Yeah. But you know what? I think that's so key. I'm so glad you brought that up. And one, good for you for doing it. But when we
A
go from
journey. It's a
relationship,
process. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I hate me for being me. So it's an
mm,
up and down journey, but I'm glad I went on that journey, and I'm still walking on that journey. But go ahead, sorry.
well, I think we're always walking on that journey, right? Especially when we get into the mindset of growing rather than being in this fixed mindset and of negativity, right? And that's what I think it becomes with making a decision. So the fact that you made a decision like, you know what, I'm going to work on me, that's where it begins. Is making that decision of I'm willing to work on me and whatever that looks like. And even if we don't like ourselves, right? Then we have to learn how to give ourselves grace to go, okay, I might not like myself right now, but I know I'm going to come back around. And and also giving yourself permission to, if you want to throw yourself a pity party, allow it to happen but only, set a time limit on it. Like I'm going to sit here on the couch and eat all the junk food I want for, a week or, 2 days or whatever. And then I'm going to let it go. And I think, again, that's part of this growing process. So it's not about what we go through, it's about what we grow through.
That's so true. Like literally everything you said is what I went through because um
This is why we're sisters.
right? And this is why this conversation was what needed to happen. But when I was going through my depression before podcasting, before anything, I would just allow my depression to sink me in. I didn't know how to give myself the limit, like how to handle it, how to deal with it, and I like to the point where it would be very dark, where I'm thinking about suicide and all that. But then when I started learning myself and working on myself, and I realized that you are gonna be depressed. And it's okay for some days to just say, you know what, I'm gonna stay in bed the whole day today and do nothing. But tomorrow we're gonna get up and do some shit. Or
Right.
even when I got fired, I was like, Paula, let go under circumstances above your means. So it is okay. Allow yourself to cry. I was let go on like a Tuesday, Wednesday. I was like, I'm giving myself the whole week. Cry, deal, just be in there. And then come Mondays, we start the new week. We're getting out of that funk and figuring what's the next step. So it's
Perfect.
okay to allow yourself to do it, as long as you say, giving yourself the time. And I think that also became when you learn to communicate, because now you're also communicating with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't communicate with anybody else, you're not going to be able to communicate with yourself. And that's when you're going to start telling yourself all these things. You're not worth it. Look at your fire. You don't deserve this and all that. So it really all ties up to that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm sorry that you experienced that and had the suicide ideation. I did too, especially at a very young age. I was in my teenage years when I was going through that, and it was like, man, how do I pull myself, like looking back, it was like, how did I pull myself out of that inner negative loop that was constantly going, "Oh, you're not good enough, you're bad, you're terrible," beating ourselves up so bad, to be able to go, "Okay, I don't need to listen to that voice anymore. It's not true." And I think that's where some people get caught up in. That's where imposter syndrome takes over to a whole nother level, and it goes into the depression, then it goes into, even worse. And, there are so many people that don't come out of that, right? And on the other side of this is, I'm glad that you allowed yourself the time to grieve, because that's really what it is, a grieving process. Whenever we lose something, and because you lost your job, you were able to grieve. If you hadn't, so many people turn to other substances like drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping, gambling, whatever, all the isms, right? Alcoholisms, right? Gamblingism, whatever, all the things, to fill and cover that up. Like, I don't really want to feel the feelings. So the fact that you're just allowing yourself to process the feelings, that's that's the secret, I think.
And you're right. We tend to give too much power to that inner voice of ours instead of like, no, get away. Don't want to listen to you. So so let me ask you this, right? How does one become fearless in communication?
Mm. Well, I have to start. So I recommend everyone start with journaling. And that's what was my own process, was capturing my thoughts. And I had a journal growing up in English class, and so I absolutely hated it. But on my, gosh, I wasn't even on my healing journey. It was many years before that. I just had this nagging thought that kept coming into mind, like, I should journal. I should journal. Why don't you start journaling? You should journal. You should write that out. So I just got some loose leaf notebook paper. I didn't even have a notebook or a journal or anything like that. I just got some paper. And I literally wrote down, this is so stupid. I have no idea what I'm going to say. This is dumb, blah, blah, blah. I hate writing. Why am I doing this? And it's physical writing. It's with a pen or paper, crayon, whatever, marker, but not, a device. And because I started to do that, thoughts then went away, because you capture your thoughts, right? And it's, you can go to, Google it, but through the brain, there is something neurological that happens when it comes out of your brain, down your shoulder, onto the pen, onto the paper. It has a release to it. and clear, starts new neural pathways. So as I started to do that, I then got into, well, remember when this happened? And all of a sudden I'm writing about a time when I was in middle school of having to be called up front to the whiteboard to work on an answer, or a chalkboard. I'm old. And so, work on the chalkboard for a math problem.
We had a chalkboard too.
Yeah.
My hands would be all. We didn't
Yes.
have a whiteboard. We had chalk
We had chalkboard.
and
Yes.
dust
And dust,
whatever.
lots of dust. Yeah. And I, in my head, was so afraid that in my head I was so overweight and big that I was going to walk through the desks and knock people's books off and Kleenex off. And by the time I got to the board, it was like I was having all of these thoughts and blah 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 blah. And it wasn't until these many years later that I'm journaling, just capturing my thoughts as I'm writing this down, that I was having panic attacks at that age. Like, what? That never even crossed my mind. Wow, I had no idea. And then by the time I got home, my mom would say, how was school? How was your day? And here's a snack. So instead of actually sharing with her what was really going on, because had to be vulnerable, right? So heaven forbid I be vulnerable. I just took the snack and shoved it in my mouth and was like, fine, and kept going. And it wasn't until then, my teenage years, I started doing that with alcohol. And so I was a teenage alcoholic. I was drinking daily at 15. And it was like, wow, like I didn't even realize that it all stemmed from the voice that was going on in my head. Now, funny, if I now talk about it as an adult and talk about with other people that were in my class at that same time, they were like, well, first of all, we had like 30 some kids in a small classroom and you're so short and, you're walking through the desk. Of course you're going to hit stuff. And I'm like, right. But in my head, I was like, no, I'm like this humongous person. What is that? Body dysmorphia disorder or something? Like I'm in my head, I'm thinking I'm this round balloon walking through, and they're like, no, not at all. So it was just really healing for me to see how just our thoughts, just because we have a thought doesn't mean it's true. So just by that, starting to journal was so helpful of capturing my thoughts to really understand that what I'm thinking is not true. And then how do I correct that? How do I rewire my brain? And it's work. I mean, I literally would start then saying all the negative things I said about myself. And then I would say, I am no longer that. I am no longer owning that. I would like release it. And then I would think about the people I admire, and I would write down all their positive characteristics. And then because we're a mirror of the things that we see in other people, I would write the words I am, the two most powerful words in the English language, I am, right before those positive characteristics. And I started to repeat and do repetition of writing those affirmations is really what they are. And that started to click in like, wait, I am those things. So when those negative thoughts came up, I could just recall one of those affirmations and say that instead.
I love that. I love that. And for me, I actually started journaling for a long time. Like I've had diaries for a long time because I was always told I was loud and emotional. So
Mm.
nobody wanted. So I felt like if I have to say something, people are gonna tell me, "Oh, there goes that emotional again."
Mm.
And from my young age, I had this thing, right? For some reason, I still have it. Um, I will wake up and my heart will feel so dark. Like something will
Mm.
just feel off and I'll be so sad. Or I might just be crying for no reason. And that day, some bad news will happen. Either somebody passed away, whether somebody I know personally or the Hollywood like artist, like something will go wrong in the world.
Yeah.
So I've always had that since I was a kid. But then when I used to tell people, they'll think, we're Africans, oh, you're a witch, oh, that's nonsense. You think you're psychic, and no, and then when something does actually happen, they're like, wait. So I stopped sharing. That's when I started writing, because for me also, whether I fight with somebody or I'm going through something, if I don't let it out, it stays in my head, and I'm an
Yes.
overthinker. So I
Yep.
start
Same.
thinking, and then I start creating more problems, and then I start depressing myself, and then it
Yeah.
just becomes, which something would have been really small, now it's all big because of my mind and my head. So
Yep.
whenever I would put it down on paper, I'm like, okay, sometimes I don't have people to talk to, because back home when I was a kid, my dad, no matter what, he would always listen to me. Like, he really has the best support, but he was never around as much because he traveled a lot, he worked a lot, but he worked to provide a good life for me, so I can't even be mad at that. But so whenever I was gone, and you're a kid back then, it's not like how phones are these days. Everybody has a phone, you can
Right.
call. You can't. There wasn't WhatsApp to call international. They have to add a calling card to call us back
Yep.
home, and,
Yep.
and you get a call once a day, maybe at night for good night. How was your day? So it wasn't like
Yep.
I could talk to him anytime I wanted. So the diary became my best friend, and I would literally write on my journals. Like, I'd start with Dia Chiro because she was my best friend, and then she passed away. So it also
Mm.
felt like a way of me also talking to her because I knew she was listening. So I started Chiro, and I would just start writing. I will cry. I will feel. Then I'll start feeling weight has been lifted. Like, okay, now it's on pen on paper. So that's good. So I think that's why even when I started my podcast TalkShitWithP with P on mental health, I was like, because once I started talking about my struggles, I
Yes.
started feeling lighter, and the
Yes.
support started coming, and people were communicating with me and talking to me, and sharing ideas and options and opinions, and also just telling me I'm not alone because they are also dealing with that. So I
Hmm.
realized that when it comes to sharing, whether you talk to somebody, whether you talk to your friends, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your diary, your journal, whatever, it really does help calm your mind.
Mm. Agree. Oh, well, and talking about used to talk to your best friend. My best friend moved away, and we would write notes back and forth to each other. And I found some notes. It's funny. I moved 2 years ago, and I found some notes from childhood from her, and we're still friends to this day. And she was writing her feelings, what she was going through, and I was reading it, and I was thinking to myself, I bet I didn't say anything like that. I bet you I withheld everything because I was also told, you're too emotional, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that. And the key phrase that really got me was, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So, like, complaining or voicing your opinion, if it was not in a nice way, was like, wow. So I kept my mouth shut a lot, and then I didn't when it was time for sarcasm. Right? There was always time for sarcasm.
And my sarcasm is like, I'm so straightforward. Like, anybody who has met me knows, like, I literally say what comes out. Like, and that's why I think I also like podcasts, because people really know where it's coming from. Like, I just really just say shit, and they're like, wait, it's Paula, so we get it, like,
Yeah.
But sometimes my friends will be like, damn, because sometimes they'll say things, and the sarcasm in me is like, I have to respond, like, it's right there. And I realize that sometimes it was me, like, not everybody can take that. And sometimes I just say it, and I realize that, oh shit, that was kind of mean, but
Right.
but I meant it, like, that's what it was. And even growing up as a kid, right? My parents stopped taking me to restaurants or to people's houses to eat, because I used to be a picky eater. So I
Mm.
hated food. And it's funny because now I love food. I love exploring food. I will try anything. But back in the days, the only thing I ate was chips and chicken, fries and chicken, fries and chicken. No matter where I was, you take me to an Italian restaurant, fries and chicken. You take me to a Mexican, fries and chicken. Like, even my dad was like, "What's the point of taking you to an expensive restaurant? Like, you're ordering this." I'm like, "But you also tell us that whatever we order, we have to finish it. We can't throw
Oh,
food.
yes.
So why would I order something I'm not sure I'm gonna like just to
Mm.
throw it away? Because you're gonna get mad if I try it, and then I'm like, Dad, I don't like this food." But
Mm.
then I was also such a spoiled brat where I didn't know when just to shut up, because they'll bring a food, and I'll judge it just by the way it looks, and I'll be like, yuck, I ain't eating that. Like, and then we are in a table full of these people, and my mom is like,
I understand.
so they stop taking me to nice restaurants. They'll just leave me at home and order me chicken and fries and say, stay there.
That's it. That's all you get, chicken and fries.
And
Which,
then,
by the way, are still two of my favorite food. But they were definitely that when I was a kid too. But yes, I have an extensive palate now as well.
well, I feel like this when I was like, okay, I need to be better at just, that statement where if you ain't got nothing nice to say, just shut up. So I'll just be like, because I want to go to a nice restaurant, even if I'm going to order chicken and fries. I want to go to a nice restaurant and eat
Right.
chicken fries from a nice restaurant. So I'll be like, I'm just going to shut up, Dad. And then I'll be there, but because my face was literally people say they were so happy during COVID because my face was covered. Because my face doesn't hide any reaction. Like if
Same.
I'm pissed, if I'm laughing, like you will get just by looking at my face. So I'll be there, and my dad will be looking at me as soon as the food is brought, and he's looking like, "You better not say something," but my face is saying, "Oh my god!" But yeah, what a growth. So, Sha, before we come to an end of this, right? I want you to tell the people, the incredible people who are either tuning in or gonna watch the replay, you have a program called Alpha Program. Can we talk about that for a bit?
Yeah,
I
sure.
want you to shine your program for me, baby girl.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking. So I have a Spark Your Alpha program. It's a coaching program. It is for leaders. And it's really to amplify their emotional intelligence, really be in touch with having more confidence and the growing who they are, growing their mindset. And it's Alpha is an acronym and it stands for awareness. So it goes into the self-awareness, leadership. What are the leadership values that you have and how does that rank? How do you show up with those? P is purpose. How are you showing up for your purpose? Do you even know what your purpose is? Hope is the opposite of fear. And so how does fear show up and how can we create more hope for you? And maybe it's an aspirational hope. And then the last one is alignment. How do you know when you're in alignment and how do you bring maybe two sides of the coin together so it is in alignment?
I love that. And they all work together because you need awareness to be able to be a good leader. Because
Yes.
if you're not aware, you really can't be a good leader. And I'm not just anybody can be a leader, but there's a difference between and
Right.
then
Exactly.
with leadership, you can't lead if you don't know your purpose, right?
Right.
You need to know your purpose to be a good leader. Then hope. You need to have hope. Like I tell people, hope and faith are very important with your purpose and in your alignment. They all go together. So I love that. It's like all the five ingredients needed for the growth of yourself and your business.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Look at that. How did you end up coming up with this? Like, I want to know the backstory. Like, when you were thinking about naming your program, what made you say Alpha and like pick that word? Because you could have picked any words, right? Because
Right.
there's so
Right.
many words that ALP. So why? Like, what made that? Just out
Well,
of curiosity.
yeah. So I told you I was a spiritual person. So I woke up in the middle of the night out of the blue. I sat up in bed in the middle of the night and I heard Alpha. And I was like, "Okay, God, thank you. I need to go back to sleep now. So talk to me in the morning." And so the next morning, and I
You shan't go down for sleep.
like, "Tell me later." Oh, we have conversations talk about being fearless. We have conversations like that all the time.
No, but I do that too. I'm like, you know what? I know I'm supposed to be praying right now, but I don't think I can because I'm so sleepy or my mind is not at the right time. So God, I'll check it later, But I'm thinking about you.
Yeah. So the next morning, that's normally when I do my writing, and it's kind of a meditation type of writing. It's kind of intuitive. It's kind of a basically a letter to God. And so I'm just saying, writing, thank you for all the things. And I then go through and will thank him for all the things that's happened, kind of do an attitude of gratitude. And for the things that I haven't received yet, but I'm working on and things like that. And then I would be like, okay, you gave me the word alpha. Thank you for that. I don't know what that means. So lay it out for me. What does it mean? And that just came to me as I was writing: awareness, leadership, purpose, hope, alignment. And I'm like, okay, what is this? Is this a program? What is this? And at the time, I was actually writing a speech that I was doing, a presentation that I was doing at a women's empowerment conference. And so I was like, got it. That's what I'm going to speak on. And it was a Christian women's conference. And I'm like, I'm not Bible versey. I don't know, have things memorized. So help me out with that. And I was able to pull verses that were in alignment with every single one of those words. And I was like, okay, that works. I can use this. And so I really thought it was only focused towards women to help them find their purpose and start a business. And right after that happened, I actually was at my first podcast conference, which is not the one we just went to. It was another one back in August of 2018. And I had started my podcast the year before. And I was talking to a gentleman after meeting 500 people. Talking to another gentleman at my last day. And he's like, well, tell me about what you do with coaching. And I said, I transform trauma into treasure. And he said, oh, have you considered working with veterans? And I was like, well, that's funny. I meet them everywhere I go. And then I was walking around the podcast conference the rest of the day with my shoulders shrugged, kind of looking up, going, okay, God, is that what you want? You want me to work with veterans? Because spark your alpha, that makes sense. And so within a month, I was also living part-time in DC. I found myself on Capitol Hill in a congresswoman's office, asking questions of what is the military doing? What is the government doing to help the military find their purpose before they leave the military and go back to civilian life? And that's really kind of what it's shifted into now. So even though it's for everyone, I definitely help a lot of veterans in that space.
I love that, and that's such a definition of you knew your purpose. You knew you wanted to help, and then you allowed God to lead you, and you
Yes.
picked on the signs, because sometimes the signs are there, but because it's not what we think it should be, or not what we have in our mind. Because sometimes we're just so stuck in our mind, like, no, because I want this, that can't be my sign.
Right.
But that was the sign. So you followed it. You followed God led you, and you followed, and look at that. I love that. And that's why it also all aligns together.
Yeah, and I want to say something about that, if I may, real quick. So during my healing journey, I started to notice that a door would open, and I would just, in being vulnerable, one of the how to be vulnerable is to step out of your comfort zone. And fear lives in the status quo. Fear, once you step out, your comfort zone expands. So the fear isn't when you get there, it's the anticipation before, right? And so I thought, okay, so what if I just started stepping out of my comfort zone on a regular basis? What does that look like? And I thought, if I do this, or when I do this, I'm going to do it with the curious exploration thought process of, who am I here to connect with? What am I here to learn about me? And what am I here to learn about whatever I'm here to learn? And that's how I started to approach everything. So when a door opened, I would just go, okay, so now I'm here in Capitol Hill, and I'm just going to walk through this door and go, okay, I'm not sure why I'm here, but here I am. And that's how I had started to approach everything, from networking events to going to this podcast conference, to starting a podcast, to all the different things. And it was like, wow, this is how, um, how do I want to say this? This is how, what serves me the best way to live life, rather than focusing on a goal and being so narrowed in, boxed into that goal. I just go through what the next door that opens, and what am I here to learn?
That's I can relate to that because that's me as well. And I think because I've always not wanted a conventional life, like I always knew I wanted a life bigger than the life I have normally seen, you know?
Yeah,
And
same.
and that's why my life has been like that. And for some reason, even when things don't work out, I just pray and let God lead me.
Yes.
And I just follow. Whatever though, I'm like, I'm going. And that's the thing I tell people, just show up and
Yes,
just be intentional with what when you show up with those connections or those whatever it is, just show up and let it come to it, and that's all I've been doing, and for some reason it's been working. So
agreed.
you're
Yeah,
right.
agreed. Yeah. Oh, well, it kind of goes back to that. And I'm going to mess it up, but there's a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King who says, instead of focusing on the whole staircase, focus on the next step. And I'm like, that's where the answer is. The answer isn't in the, at the end of the journey. The answer is in the next step. And then you go from there. And it's never a straight line. It's never a straight journey. You just keep going. And when the next door opens, you just go through it with this curious exploration of, what am I here to learn? Who am I here to connect with? What am I learning about me?
So true. That also applies in life, right? Because before I was coming to Podfest, I lost my Tanzanian card on the ATM. It swallowed, and you know the ATM tells you go to your bank for a new one. I'm like, my bank is all the way in Tanzania. How am I supposed to get a new card right now? So I called my dad because I knew it was gonna be like, oh my God, now I gotta go deal with the bank, and you know it's gonna take a whole week for them to give me a car. I was like, Dad, they're not worrying. They're not thinking about what happens after I get the card. How are you sending it to me? One step at a time. Go to
Yeah.
the bank, whatever they tell you, then we'll take it from there. And you see, because they decided to do that, he went to the bank and he didn't even have to wait a week to get a card. They gave it to him right there. Then when he called me, I'm like, okay, now let's go to DHL and see how much it will cost us. And he was able to send it. I was like, you see, I'm not gonna worry. I'm just gonna take step by step. If you start worrying about the entire picture, you're gonna lose your focus,
Yes.
and you're just gonna be in this position of stress stress that you're inputting on yourself.
Right.
And
The overwhelm. You're gonna be overwhelmed and go,
yes,
"Oh my god, I can't." Sometimes we shut down, we go into the freeze mode when we get that overwhelm. Yeah.
yeah. All right, as we come to an end, you are also an author. You have a book called How to Get Your Voice Back. So,
Yeah.
as we come to an end, please let the people know about this book, where they can get it, and about your 3 shows that you got going on.
Thank you. So, I have How to Get Your Voice Back. It is, a journal prompt book, and so just kinda like what I shared with earlier with affirmation, it really kinda takes you through that. You can get on Amazon. You can also, I believe, get on my website at shasparks.com. That's SHASPARKS.com. And I started my podcast back in 2018. It was called the Power of Investing in People podcast. And it just transformed this past November on my 5th year. I just had this, thank you. I had 200 episodes, and I just felt like this message from God was saying, don't you think it's about time it's your show? And so it's now the Sha Sparks Show, and you can hear it on Apple, Spotify, all the things. Or you can go to the website, theshasparksshow.com. And my website is there, and you can send me a message, sign up, leave me a voice message, let me know what you thought of whatever episode you listened to. And yeah, that is. Oh, and then the other shows, they started on an online network last year on, gosh, it was last March that started, United Network News, and it is unitednetwork.earth, I think is the new website. And it is kind of like Netflix. It's a paid subscription. And it is real talk, where I talk with real people about making real change in the world. And the other one is UnderWired. It's for women, 3 other women and myself. We are uplifting and supporting women everywhere. And the Sha Sparks Show is where I interview business and military leaders on what it means to invest in people.
Thank you very much. And one last thing, because I want to make sure people really know you are a powerful house. You
Mm.
also have podcast in a box and inclusive host for hire. So briefly tell people about that, so in case somebody out there is interested in that.
Yes, and if you don't mind, I'd share about Firestarters Book Project as well.
Yes, go
Um,
ahead.
Yes, the Firestarters Book Project is a co-author book that, if you're interested in collaborating with other creative thought leaders inside a book, we connect you with each other. We have a summit. We do all these things, but what we really do is share our story inside a book that goes along with a theme rather than a target market. So many of these books, like Chicken Soup for the Soul, was really focusing on the target market. We were focusing on the theme, and so we brought out the book How to Be a Spark of Hope in the Midst of Change back in 2021. And this book we're looking for co-authors is How to Rekindle Your Kindness, What the World Needs Now.
Nice.
So go to firestartersbookproject.com to learn more about that. And then I also do this, thank you, Paula, for mentioning it, the podcast Host for Hire, where if you own a business and you've been thinking, oh, I really want to start a podcast, but I don't have any idea where to start, how to do this, what do I talk about, all the things. I come in and I interview you, the owner, for your show. I make sure that we hit all of the FAQs on your website. We might pull your audience of your customer base, your clients, your patients, and really focus on what it is that they want to know about your business and how we can weave in then personal stories so that the highly intelligent professional that you are can also let your audience know, to know, like, and trust you and have some fun with it. And so then my team takes care of all the back end stuff, and then I hand it over to their marketing team and I show them what to do with it. Use it in email marketing, the blogs, ebooks, and possibly even books.
That's incredible. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's why I said powerhouse, like so much. So people, make sure if you're interested in any of that or just connecting with Sha, because she's a beautiful human being who will spark your life and bring some light in it. Thank you, Sha, for coming in and having a very interesting conversation with me. I've learned some things and I'm gonna actually realize that I have some shit to go do after this conversation on myself. So thank you. And that's why I love having these conversations, because we are never done
Right.
working on ourselves. And however much you think you're there, you speak to somebody and then something lights up and you're like, damn, I actually need to do a little bit more work over there,
Mhm.
kind of. So thank you for that. Everybody who was watching, thank you for watching. For those who are gonna watch the replay, thank you for watching the replay. Please leave some comments, some reviews, whatever it is. But thank you for hanging out at Shit Happens. All right.